appreciate everybody being here today. Was real pleased with our performance last Saturday. I think holistically we got an awful lot of things done that moved our football team forward. Defensively, really played a complete game. I hadn't really felt like we'd done that in a while. Got off to a real good start, and then obviously our ability to take the ball away 5 times was huge, and to get the shutout I thought was very, very significant. Offensively, we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit in the first half last week. Went into the locker room up 13-0. I didn't really feel, though, that we were in control. Then we came out in the third quarter and scored 23 unanswered points, led by Strauss and the other offensive line performed real well in the second half. Kendall Gaskins ran real well in the second half. Ben Edwards had a big night. Then defensively, we took the ball away and scored on defense. So a lot of guys got to play. We kind of got a chance to, finish it off right. So I think we're in a real good spot. I really feel like this football team's getting better. I mean, it's a neat thing to be able to say, despite, a couple of the significant injuries we've had that have taken star players out of our lineup. I just feel like our football team's continuing to get better, really have been adopting a next man up mindset and approach. A lot of guys had an opportunity to step up last weekend against Rhode Island. Excited about this game here, Senior Day. Excited about the competition. Delaware has a phenomenal tradition, arguably the best in all of FCS football. Outstanding football coach, a guy that's certainly proven himself and his ability to lead them to championships. And I think they're a very talented team. Their roster's been changing a bit from week to week as they've had some guys get injured, and we don't know exactly who all will be in the lineup when they show up here on Saturday. But I think it's going to be a really exciting football game. I'm looking forward to the competition. At this time, I'll take any questions from the media.
Coach Rocco, based on your knowledge of what other programs do you guys do anything different at halftime? And I ask because of the dominance Richmond's had in the third quarter this year.
I don't think so. I obviously do something that I had done as an assistant under other coaches, be it Al Groh, be it Tom Coughlin, whomever. Our basic protocol is, my players know that when they go into the locker room at halftime, they all need to go in and immediately get seated, because I'm going to address the team before they use the restroom, before they get a drink. Not that people aren't offering them drinks, but I'm going to address the team. So the first thing that'll happen is I'll always address the team in the locker room. And I kind of mentioned it the other day. I just give an honest assessment of what I just saw, witnessed, experienced, what I think, where I think we're at, and what I think we need to be able to do in the second half. So at least they get some immediate feedback. And then I offer an opportunity for Coach Legg, our special teams coordinator, to follow up with some insight on some things that may have happened in the kicking game. While I'm doing that, our coaches are in another room. Coach Trott's got the defensive coaches. Coach Street's got the offensive coaches huddled up. I'll then walk into that room and ask for their attention. But I'll first offer to the coaches what I just said to the team. This is what I just offered to the guy. They need to know what I said to the guys, so they can echo that. But and then address with them some specifics towards the second half. Now, whether that's changing the way we're playing the game, changing the way we're calling the game, adjusting to things that the opponent's doing differently, and addressing personnel. And then I'll always gravitate towards defense and pretty much sit down with the defensive coaches and kind of rehash the first half. Then our coaches, at about 9-10 minutes to go in the half, they go out and they meet with the offense and defense in separate ends of the locker room. And then I usually walk back in there with about 4 minutes to go, offer some last-minute encouragement, motivation, and then we head on out. So I think it's probably more standard than different. But I like the fact that it offers some immediate feedback, and it allows the coaches enough time to communicate and get the information communicated to the student athlete. Thank you.
So does that mean the success in the third quarter just means that you've been saying the right things at halftime, or what do you think?
No, I don't really think it has much to do with it. I don't know. I'm glad we're having success. I hope you guys aren't trying to get me to change what I'm doing. I said this earlier. I think the reality is when you head into a game, you really don't know how you're going to match up. You know, especially for me, being new here, first year, and then going through this league for the first time. You know, so you watch film, we all compare scores, which is absolutely positively a waste of time from week to week, you know. You watch the film and you think you got an idea what these matchups are like, so you kind of head into your game planning and into your preparation feeling like you got a pretty definitive course of action. Then you get into the game, and it's never totally consistent, never, you know. You either overestimated an area or underestimated an area, you know, misjudged an opponent, a talent, you know, a key player for them, whatever. So I do think what does happen, though, at halftime, okay, you have that opportunity to say, okay, you know, this is kind of what we thought. This is kind of what's really happening. This is the reality. This is where we are right now, and we got to respond to that reality. So maybe from that context, I do bring the past to the present, and I've been real honest. Like I've said before, I'm really direct and honest with my assessment at halftime. That's what the kids need to hear, and you know they've responded well to this point.
You mentioned improving week to week. It's got to be an ideal situation, getting better as you get to the end of the season with meaningful football games in November.
Yeah, it's something that I'm excited about. It's really hard, you know, to put our finger on it. You know, hopefully the trend continues. I think that there are some elements of newness, or I don't want to use the word freshness, but newness that are still permeating throughout our program. So there are some, you know, this is the first time that we've been through November together. November is a huge deal to me. It always has been. You know, I'm as cliche as it gets when it comes to be at your best at the end, all right, and winning in November. You know, so some of these things that I've been able to communicate over the years, these guys are hearing from me for the first time. So there's still some element of, I think, momentum in our program right now. And I think that's extremely positive. You know, we'll see how we finish. We'll see how we play here this weekend. I'm expecting us to play real well against a very good team. But I think that there are some real elements of communication, relationships that are continuing to build and grow. You know, and it is what it is. I mean, you know, we're going to recognize our seniors here on Saturday. And, you know, these guys, I've been with them since December, and let's face it, as soon as I took the job, everybody went home for Christmas. There's a long Christmas break. So, I mean, I've been with those guys 7-8 months. And, you know, to some extent, some of them I'm really just now getting to know, legitimately getting to know, you know, because we're also business work-like oriented in our thinking. You know, we come in here to work and to take care of our business. And so I do think that there are some elements of our football team that are still moving forward, coming together, and that is exciting. And, you know, hopefully it's real and it's legitimate and that it can continue.
As much as you prepare and believe in your roster and the kids that you have on it, have there been moments this year, either during a game or when you're watching film or maybe even in practice, where you've been surprised and pleasantly surprised with how quickly they've grasped what you're trying to teach, or something that you tried that maybe you thought this might or may not work, and all of a sudden it does, and it works perfectly just like you would
Yeah,
have drawn
I
it up?
think that, all of us, all we can ever really do is reference our previous experiences. I've been doing this 29 years, so I've had a lot of experiences, not all of them good. I've been doing it as a head coach for 7, so I've, had 6 years of head coaching experience. And as a head coach, I've been in some of these settings, some of these environments, some of these games, and these kids have really yet to disappoint me. Our opening game, I didn't think we played real well. There's an awful lot that went into that against a good football team. They were playing very, very well. But I think in the key moments, and I have to be able to compare this team to like the best teams I had at Liberty. That's all. That's the only way I can say it. So those are my references. And I had some good teams at Liberty, nationally ranked teams, 10-win teams. So as I experience these games and these opportunities and these moments, I'm kind of referencing those teams or those games or those opportunities. And this team here has always exceeded. I'm excited about that. There's an element here that I think that, our upside could be, very significant. Now there's no margin for error. It's just kind of where you're at this time of year. There's no margin for error. But they have, more been pleasantly surprising to me in those moments, and very few moments of disappointment.
You talk about Cooper playing offense and asking him if he was willing to do that. What's kind of the genesis of that?
Yeah, it began when Jovan was medically disqualified from being able to play. Jovan Smith was our Wildcat quarterback. So we immediately had, we have to reevaluate this thing. And then when John Lobb got injured and was sidelined, just in my thinking, I knew we needed to have another ball carrier, another offensive weapon, so that Kendall and Jacoby wouldn't have to burden the entire load. And I didn't want Mike Strauss running the ball. Not that he can't. I just didn't want him running the football. So I started to ask or look at it as if I wanted to replace John Lobb as a runner. That's what I wanted to do. And, physically, John and Cooper are very similar. And athletically, Cooper's fast, but they're both big, physical kids. So I really wasn't looking to put a scat back there. I didn't want to put Kendall back there because he's already carrying the ball, and I was trying to find another guy to lessen the load or share the wealth. So that's why we moved in that direction. I offered that to Street. We sat down and talked about it, and kind of came back the next day and felt pretty good, and maybe offered, a couple general thoughts. Let's run, power. Let's run inside zone. Let's get one throw, and then Street kind of put it all together as far as the specifics of the package. The 2 first downs we got against James Madison made it worth its time and effort. So to me, it was certainly time well invested.
Speaking of Cooper, Coach, do you have seniors that you believe will be playing in postseason games in terms of East-West Shrine game, those sorts of things?
Yeah, it's a little premature to know specifically, but I have been contacted by a number of different games, organizations, watch lists on a couple of players. I think that Cooper Taylor has been the most commonly asked for player on my team, Kendall Gaskins, and Finney. So those have kind of been the 3 guys that have really received some legitimate interest from those types of opportunities. And as we all know, today there are a lot more variety. There is a lot more of a variety in these postseason all-star games than there were 5, 10, 12 years ago. And there are several games right now that are exclusive FCS games. So I think they're all going to be having opportunity, plus others, to represent our program in a game after the season does end. Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and with it being senior day, I know you've only known some of these guys for 8 months, but can you talk a little bit about, or just comment on them and what they've, I guess, had to go through, going through some of the ups
Yeah.
and downs over their career?
Well, without trying to, get sentimental here at all, I think it's been a very unique situation. A head coach coming in anew isn't all that unique. We see it, you guys see it. I've done it prior. So there's a dynamic there that's very unique. It's these young people want leadership, they want discipline, they want to be able to trust somebody. And this particular group, because of all the change, because of all the different people that stood before them, all good people, all good coaches, but it just became very convoluted for them. And I kind of sensed that, they wanted to buy in, they wanted to listen, they wanted to win, they wanted to work, but they were resistant. And I almost feel like there's still times I'm still dealing with some resistance, but I'm saying, well, that's okay. I mean, that really is okay, and I acknowledge it. I'm open about it with the team when I talk to the team. It's a process. Them getting to believe and trust in me is a process. Me getting to know them and trust them, it's a process. And since they have been, quote, misled, some of them having been involved with 4 or 5 head football coaches, you can't blame them for some skepticism. Heard that before. Been there, done that. But I think the longer that we're together, the more they sense an element of sincerity, humility, hopefully, from me. And I think they're interested in following that, buying into that. And so we've been able to, capture their hearts a little bit. We've been able to generate some enthusiasm. We've been able to generate some momentum. And and we're moving forward, and that's all I can really say. I mean, that's all you can really, hope to do when you come into a situation that had really struggled the previous year, and there becomes low morale and finger pointing and elements of concern within the program. So I'm real happy. I know this for sure. And I'll say this to the guys. I mean, they may just watch this thing, but I guess nowadays they can actually do that, right? Yes, sir. For as much as I want to be able to say that I've been good for this team and for these kids and these seniors, and I believe that to be true, what I know for a fact is they've been really good for me. I know I'm a better football coach for having come to the University of Richmond and having dealt with these circumstances, this conference, this schedule. And that's really what I think we're all wanting to do is continue to get better. I talk to my players all the time about constant and continual improvement. So for me to talk to them like that, but then pretend that, I got all the answers, I don't need to get any better, is ridiculous. So I think that this opportunity has truly allowed me to continue to improve, advance, and I think our football team is also moving forward and advancing.